Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about probability. So probability is the likelihood of something happening. So it's written as a fraction, decimal, between 0 and 1, or as a percent between 0 and 100. In this formula down here, this is what we use to find probability of an event. So it's the number of ways that it can happen divided by the number of outcomes that are possible that could happen. Okay, so today we'll be looking at a couple of different types of probability. So here's our first example. It says, what's the probability that you will roll an even number when you roll a die? So remember that probability is calculated the number of ways that something can happen divided by the total number of outcomes. So here, if we think about the possible outcomes when we roll a die, we could get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6, okay? So the probability that we will roll an even number would be a 2, 4, or 6. There's 3 ways that that can happen. So we would say that P is equal to 3 over, we're going to have 6 on the bottom because there are 6 different numbers here. Okay, so there's 3 favorable outcomes, 6 possible outcomes. Okay, so we're going to reduce that. 3, 6 is the same thing as 1/2. Okay, so that's one way that we could write this answer. Our probability is 1/2. Okay, you may also see this as a decimal. A decimal form would be 0.5. Okay, that's the same thing as 1/2. You could also see it written as a percentage, which would be 50%. All 3 of those are going to mean the same thing. Here's another example. It says in a bag of Skittles, there are 10 purple, 5 blue, and 3 red. What is the probability that you will get a blue Skittle? Okay, so this time our favorable outcome is the blue Skittles. And since there are 5 of those, we're going to have 5 on top. Okay, on the bottom is going to be all of our possible outcomes. So we could get one of these 10 purple, one of these 5 blue, or one of these 3 reds. So there's a total of 18 possible outcomes. Okay, so that's actually as simple as our fraction gets, 5 over 18. So that's one way that we could write that. We could write this as a decimal. So the decimal form of this is going to be 5 over 18, which is going to be 0.278. Okay, or we could write this as a percentage. Okay, we could have 27.8%. So I know that 27.8% of the time, I'm going to come out with a blue Skittle. So a couple different probability types that we just looked at. One of them is called theoretical probability. Okay, so theoretical probability is what should happen in an ideal situation. Okay, so if I roll a dice, I should roll a 1 out of 6 times because there's only one 1 on the die and there are 6 sides to it. That would be theoretical probability. Okay, so our formula for that would be number of favorable outcomes over the total number of possible outcomes. Another one is an experimental probability. So we're actually doing an experiment here. So we actually did something, and that would be the number of times an event occurs and the number of trials on the bottom. So with that same number cube, if I rolled it 6 times and I got 2 1s, my experimental probability would actually be 2 over 6. Okay, so experimental just means we actually did something. We actually did an experiment. So how can we tell? Okay, so experimental. Right here, it says you toss a coin 10 times and recorded head 3 times and tail 7 times, okay? So we actually did something. We actually tossed the coin. That's why this is experimental, okay? So on this one, our probability is going to be 3 over actually back up. We had tails 7 times. So it'd be 7/10. Okay. The next one for theoretical probability of landing on tails when we flip a coin. There's only one tail on the coin and there's 2 sides to the coin. So it's actually 1/2. Okay. So theoretical, we're saying we didn't actually do anything, but if I were to flip a coin, there's one side that has tails and there's 2 sides to the coin. Okay. So know the difference between experimental and theoretical. So just know that experimental means we actually did something. Theoretical, we're just thinking, what should happen if we were to do this experiment? So let's practice identifying what type of probability this is. So it says a bag contains 3 red marbles and 3 blue marbles. What is the probability of picking a red marble? Okay, so the question we should ask ourselves is, did we actually do anything? Did we actually pull any marbles out of the bag? The answer to that question is no. So since we didn't actually pull any marbles out of the bag, this is theoretical. Okay. So now our probability, okay, if I were to reach in the bag, there are 3 red marbles that I could pick, and there are 6 total marbles. So my probability is 1/2. I could also write that as 0.5, or I could also write that as 50%. So all of these answers actually mean the same thing. And you could see it written any of these ways. Here's another one. Identify the type of probability. It says you draw a marble out of the bag, record the color, and replace the marble. After 6 draws, you record 2 red marbles. Okay, so this time we actually did something. We actually pulled marbles out of the bag. So since we actually pulled marbles out of the bag this time, this would be experimental. Okay, so our probability of getting red, I got red twice, so that's going to be the number on top. I did this 6 times, so there's going to be a 6 on the bottom. That simplifies to 1/3. So I could write my answer as a fraction. I could write it as 0.33 as a decimal, or I could say 33% of the time I end up with a red marble. Okay, and that's it. So please go check out the assignment on Canvas and let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.